Hello beautiful friends, what's up and welcome back to the Loosely Bound YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. I just finished listening to Mr. Mercedes as an audiobook with my Audible subscription. If you guys are not on Audible or are looking for a good audiobook service, just check out the link below and I will go ahead and link it down there, as well as a place that you can pick up Mr. Mercedes as a physical book if you prefer to read that way. I decided to read Mr. Mercedes after listening to If It Bleeds, which is Stephen King's new collection of short stories. A character in one of the short stories is Holly Gibney, who after doing a little bit of research, I found made her original appearance in Mr. Mercedes. I loved Holly Gibney's character in If It Bleeds, so I wanted to see where she got her start. Typically, whenever I pick up a Stephen King book, I know that I'm going to be in for some scary, heckin' stuff. But Mr. Mercedes didn't fit that normal horror bill like I've grown used to reading from Stephen King. Mr. Mercedes is more of a crime thriller type novel where we follow a retired detective who's tracking down a perp that he was never able to apprehend while he was an active duty cop. The detective, whose name is Bill Hodges, is trying to find someone that is only known as the Mercedes Killer. The killer earned this title after driving a stolen Mercedes into a crowd of people waiting in line at a job fair, killing and injuring a ton of innocent people, including a child. He was able to get away from his crime and was never apprehended or heard from again until after Bill Hodges goes into retirement and Mr. Mercedes reaches out to him directly through a letter. Hodges was having a hard time being in retirement and just feeling like he didn't have much of a purpose left for his life until he received the letter from Mr. Mercedes. Even though he's not technically legally allowed to, he starts pulling some strings that he gained while he was an active duty police officer and re-investigating the Mercedes killings. About half of the book is told through Bill Hodges' perspective as he's trying to track down the Mercedes killer. The other half of the book is told from the viewpoint of Brady Hartsfield, who is actually the Mercedes killer. It goes back and forth between Bill and Brady's perspectives, telling this cat and mouse chase of good and evil. Mr. Mercedes is written so well that you almost feel like you're following a really intense chess game. Brady will make a move to trigger Bill Hodges, Bill will gain some new insight and evidence and grows closer and closer to learning who Brady Hartsfield is. So the actual storyline of Mr. Mercedes is a really good and interesting storyline. It has a few slow parts here and there, but all in all, it's a really good read. But what really sets Mr. Mercedes apart from other crime thrillers that I've read is the character development that Stephen King is such a genius at in almost everything that he writes. I feel like whenever I read a Stephen King novel, he's going to give you a wonderful backstory for every little small character that's presented throughout the story. Whether it's a cashier checking someone out at a grocery store or a random neighbor that's living a few houses down the street, if they come into the plot line, Stephen King is going to give you such an excellent background and just really make you feel like you know this person. He does such a great job doing that with minor characters that the way that he depicts and describes these major characters is absolutely mind-blowing. For every character that's involved in Mr. Mercedes, you feel like you have known them your entire life. You really get to see what's happening inside of their heads and why they operate and tick the way that they do. Mr. Mercedes is the first in a trilogy about Bill Hodges, and after reading it, I know without a shadow of a doubt I'm going to be checking out the other two books in this little series. I loved listening to Mr. Mercedes after finishing If It Bleeds because I already had grown accustomed to a few of the characters that are presented in the Bill Hodges trilogy as well. And it was really cool to know that even though it wasn't my first time being introduced to these characters, I know where they're going to end up years down the road because I had listened to If It Bleeds. I love any time that we get to hear a perspective from the villain's point of view because it builds so much tension throughout the book, and Stephen King just did such a marvelous job of making you feel so invested and so completely on the edge of your seat the entire time that you are following this book. On Audible, Mr. Mercedes came in at about 14 hours, so it was not a super duper long listen, especially for something coming from Stephen King, whose books are normally just completely completely massive. It's also narrated by Will Patton, who is one of my favorite narrators on Audible. He's read a few other King novels on Audible, but he just does such a great job of impersonating these characters and making you feel like you're actually listening to different people talk and not just like someone is reading you a story. I absolutely recommend that you check out Mr. Mercedes, but if you are an audiobook person, give it a go on Audible because the performance was superb. I gave Mr. Mercedes 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads and really am so excited to grab the other 2 books in this trilogy so I can continue learning about where our characters go and see what they get themselves into next. If you've read Mr. Mercedes or any of the other novels that have these characters in them, leave a comment down below and let me know what you think about this storyline. If you haven't read it, don't forget I'll post the links right in the description box so you can easily find and order a copy for yourself. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!